good morning, the warmest of welcome to the Sustainable Tairāwhiti Committee. I'm going to ask Councillor Ria to open with Karakia for us.
Morena tātai, inoi tātai, I te atua tēnei mātou whanonga I tuku whakamoeni tātai ki a koe I tēnei ata. I te atua mana ki te mai rātou ngā whānau kei Tairāwhiti kua hauri I tēnei wā. Ko kaha rawa, ko Pākia I te Tairawhiti I ngā mate, ngā tini mate o ngā wiki me ngā marama kua pahure. I te atua, he tuku mihi tēnei ki a koe mo ngā whakahaerenga I tēnei ata. Ara te pōhiritanga o te whanaunga rā Doug Jones ki roto I te kāhui o Trust Tairawhiti. I te atua, mana ki te ao mai mātou, arahina mai mātou I roto I tā mātou hui I tēnei rā. Koenei tā mātou I noi atu ki a koe I runga I te ngoa o te tama, o te wairua tapu, ake ake, amen.
Just a friendly reminder for everyone to turn their phones and computers down. Next, we are going to move on to apologies. I have Councillor Robinson. Please turn your names if you want me to remember who you are. Otherwise, I'm just going to be like you over there. So I have Councillor Robinson as an apology, and I welcome Councillor Parata and Councillor Pahuru who are joining us from up the coast. Welcome, lovely to have you with us. Do I have a mover for apologies? Moved by Councillor Ria, seconded by Councillor Gregory. All in favour? Contrary, carried. Thank you. No declarations of are there any declarations of interest? No, I'll take you to page 5. Those are our minutes. And it takes us right through to page 9. These were emailed out by Annie just after the meeting. All I'm after is this a true record of the meeting. Thank you, Councillor Foster. Thank you, Councillor Ria. All in favour? Contrary, carried. Take you to our action sheet. You will see that there are 2 of those actions still in progress on page 10, 11 and 12. Any questions or queries in regards to the action list? Okay. Myself sorted. I have no leave of absence. I do not have acknowledgements and tributes that anyone raised with me. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Warren Rance to Council today. I'll quickly talk about public deputations. We have 2 today. Do you want Stefan to go first? Stefan from Sport Gisborne Tairāwhiti. I'll talk about public deputations, so it's roughly about 10 minutes. You're going to sit here next to me. You can talk to councillors. We allow a few minutes at the end if people have questions of clarification. It's not a debate. It is not where decisions are made. That is where we have the opportunity to listen and then ask possible questions of clarification. So, Stefan, welcome. Stefan is going to talk to us today about facilities and all good stuff sport-wise.
Yeah, nice.
And Heather will show you how to operate that. Make yourself at home. I will give you... I'll let you know in roughly about 7-8 minutes when you need to start wrapping up. But relax. Welcome to the council. The floor is yours.
Morena koutou. Tēnā koutou nā kaunihira hau. Ko te rā koutou katoa e para ana tēnei huarahi.
Tēnā koe.
Riet Nadine tēnā korua. Ko wai mātou, who are we, Sport Gisborne Tairāwhiti. Hey, thank you for the time today, and I just thought it was timely to do a little bit of an update about the mahi that we do, acknowledging that it's been some time since I've been here and there are newer councillors in the room since the last time, but also those who've continued on this path for a while. This is not with the aim of trying to get any plaudits or seeking any money coming directly to us, so you can all breathe a sigh of relief. But I think it's just important as councillors to understand a little bit of our mahi that's going on. It could help inform some decision making down the track, or also possibly with the initiatives you're involved in, a bit of collaboration opportunity when we're talking recovery. And I will do a little bit of advocacy for our wider sectors at the end, just a smidgen, because it wouldn't be a council meeting without
Right.
see what it...
I would expect nothing less.
But I do want to start by just thanking you all for the roles and the mahi that you do, a lot of responsibility and huge challenges. I'm digressing now, but I went down Midway Beach with the kids and the dog the other night, and pretty demoralising just to see all the slash and the rubbish back, and didn't help that the dog rolled in a dead tuna and stuff the power out. So thank you for the mahi that you do. Yeah, PDF probably is not going to work. So
If Heather gives it one go, then sometimes if she gives it one go, then the clicker work.
Awesome. So, Spokesman Tairāwhiti, ka tapata mana ki te rangi, that's our vision statement. We want an active, healthy and connected te Tairāwhiti. And of course, sport is a critical part of that and will always be a critical part of that. But I do just want to note our name can be a little bit misleading, because actually we care about quality activity, and that can be through sport, but it can also be through the magic of play, active recreation, people going out walking, swimming, connecting with the taiao. We're very interested in the nutrition and access to healthy kai space, and we focus a lot on people's overall hauora, more of that holistic te wharatapawhā approach. So it's a little bit of a buzzword, but we feel we're very much in that community wellbeing space. And so what we're wanting to see is just quality participation, inclusive participation. We're very big on trying to make sure we can listen to and understand the aspirations of our communities. What do they want around physical activity and wellness? And we're very hot on trying to smash down the barriers that stop people from participating, the inequities, whether that is time, travel, lack of infrastructure, lack of services. Just thought I'd do a photo of some of the team. Got a couple of slides, but always good to see who are in the team. We've had a fair bit of growth, significant growth over the last 6 years. We had back then about 19 kaimahi. We're up to just over 30 now. And that reinforces the breadth of what we do. So whilst we do work with sport, recreation and play, we actually, for example, have a large team working in the education space, helping our kura and schools provide quality physical activity opportunities, good nutrition, but also more recently, a more targeted intervention where a lot of our rangatahi are needing a bit of support to become re-engaged with learning, given the challenges they've had over recent years, and how come that connection and physical activity be a mechanism for that. We also have teams working in the hauora space, so yeah, quite a large team. There's the rest of the team as well. And I talked before about trying to better understand and support our communities, and I think would agree this is one example that the coast does not normally have as many opportunities as other areas. Nothing beats having people who are living and breathing and working in those communities. So
Look at the nodding on screen.
oh, can't see the screen, but
Our two coast councillors are saying, yep, we hear what you say.
6 years ago, we didn't have any kaimahi based up the coast, and we struggled and got scraped some funding together and for one role, and I need to acknowledge Councillor Parata, who did a fantastic job as our first flag bearer up the coast, but now great to have 8. Admittedly, 3 of them are part-time, our younger rangatahi team, but who are there to make sure they can capture the voice of rangatahi, because they can resonate a lot better with young people than someone like myself. And very quickly, there's just our board, who's on the Sport Gisborne Tairāwhiti board, quite a big board of 10, passionate individuals who are committed to good community impact. And what this slide also shows and really reinforces is just the magic of Photoshop. So a lot of work went into that one, but oh, Andy is here. Oops, sorry, Andy. So I've talked about the different areas we work in, but one other team I just want to draw to your attention is our Taupo Tairāwhiti or Shared Services team. And you'll notice that's a picture of Harauta Wakahoe because they utilise those services. But after COVID, the situation for many of our sporting and rec codes and clubs was very precarious. And our board and our team made a decision that a lot of these great community champions who are volunteers, they were being burdened by financial compliance, accountability requirements. So this is basically an accounting service, but we also help some communications and some back office support for these groups so that they can actually try and do what they love doing best and not fall over. We've got a number of sporting groups and codes doing it, but it's also stretched a little bit more into the not-for-profit sector, recognising other important settings. An example I'd give is the 5 Marae with Rongo Whakata are utilising this service as well, because we do it at a very nominal cost. A little bit about cyclone recovery, and this is kind of my theme. Part of my theme is how sport and recreation sectors are still struggling. Post-COVID, the cyclone hit. We totally understand recovery focuses on that critical infrastructure, housing, roads. I'm sure you talk a bit about that. But it does mean there is a risk that sport and rec sectors can often be overlooked. So we worked to reallocate what funding that we had, and thanks to Sport NZ, but we also approached some other local funders, and I really want to commend like Eastern Central Community Trust, Internal Affairs and Trust Tairāwhiti, who all agreed to put some money into a co-funding pot, and we're able to get $355,000 out the door to groups who needed funding at that time. And you can see a little bit of the spread of where the funding went. Along with the Pay Half, Play Hard initiative, where we managed to get $250,000 from NZCT to reduce the fees for winter sport participation for our 8 sort of major codes. Knowing that there was a lot of financial hardship being suffered in our community, we were very worried about the participation drop-off, especially for families, whānau, who have multiple members playing multiple sports. So it was a bit of a logistical nightmare, some teething issues, but it did provide some benefit. With regards to the council, where do we partnership with you guys? And we want to just acknowledge you are huge enablers of sport and recreation and play occurring. The major areas, facilities, of course, comes to mind. Always a challenge. You'll know Abby Banks, of course, who works here, so we've partly funded her role for a number of years because we recognise how critical that is. We're part of the facilities steering group. Like council, we want to see the progression of those quick win projects. It has the 15 million earmarked from Trust Tairāwhiti. I think you got a Victoria Domain update recently. They've got some money. They'll obviously be seeking more. And just a heads up that one thing we really are going to be advocating for, and not just at a local level but nationally, is the need for an indoor centre. Now potentially that could be part of Victoria Domain, but potentially not. That's going to be looked at with the feasibility. But for 30 years there has been an effort to try and get that occurring. It's critical. We're seeing so many missed opportunities now. You could talk about the weather effects and the need for perhaps more indoor centres that can cater for it. So we're going to be making some noise about that, and if Mātua Shane comes to town, maybe we'll be talking about that fund as well, regional infrastructure.
We're about halfway. I'm halfway.
Okay, cool. Play is another area where we have good alignment with you and council. We both have respective play roles, and to make sure that we don't have a situation where tamariki can only play. So it's been great to work on neighbourhood play systems and streets. Also getting play packs in the civil defence containers up the coast, I think has been great based on what tamariki said they want if they get cut off and isolated. And then there are some bespoke events where we need the council's support, which we couldn't do things like the Titarangi Mount Everest Challenge, the swim the distance at the Kiwa pools, etc. without your help. But I do feel, and if we are talking recovery and the needs of all parties to collaborate together, there are probably more other opportunities, hence why I kind of wanted to just raise the profile a little bit about the breadth of what we do and the people we've got across this community. And my final actual slide I'm going to talk to you, you'll be pleased to hear. It's just a little plug, as I say, for the wider sport and recreation sectors. The last few years have been tough. We've tried to plug gaps when the need has come up, but there are some codes and clubs now, and I won't mention names, who are really worried about their sustainability and their survival. And if we lose something, I can't easily resurrect it, right? That would be a huge shame for our community. So it's just been years of heartache, and what I would hope we could see is with recovery planning, with everything else, or regional leadership groups, there are normally different different work streams. There's jobs, there's housing, there's infrastructure. But sport, rec, physical activity, that well-being, that preventative health seems to always just be kind of missing. And yet what we saw after COVID and the cyclones is the desperate need of people to be able to come back together, to connect, to be able to do the activities they love for their own mental well-being, their own health. I think rather than seeing it as a need, nice to have, we need to see it as a need to have, in some way find a way to and you know, try and tackle those massive critical infrastructure barriers, but still ensure that the sport and rec sectors don't fall over. So I know you'll have difficult decisions soon. I'm sure there's long-term planning rounds coming, and I might come back with a more detailed submission. But I know there'd be pressure to maybe strip out what small funding is already in there for sport and rec and facilities maintenance and field maintenance, and I'm just here to say if that occurred, things will fall over. I know that doesn't make your job any easier. Yeah, so I don't want to, it's ending on quite a negative note. I need to end on something positive, but I don't have anything positive other than
Show us the last slide.
very part-side, just some nice
there's
happy
a nice
slides
one, yeah.
of
Here we
some
go.
of the team and activities happening.
Councillors, anyone have some questions of clarification? Larry?
Yeah, I was, one question. Thank you, you do a fantastic job, and in particular the Mount Everest, the walk, and I'd say the swim to Mahi would be similar, where you had a great participation rate for 2 months of people, all and then once that stops, once the program stops, there's no one there still. So how can we encourage that momentum and get all those people walking and doing exercise on a daily basis on the hill throughout the whole year, rather than just for a month or 6 weeks? And I'm sure the swim program would be the same. You get people involved with it and they're right into it, and then all of a sudden they stop. It doesn't make sense.
It's a very good point, Councillor Foster, and I think we recognise that, temporary change is great, but you want that long-term sustainable change with people. Our plans have always been to try and build off those activities and how can we increase it and who could be involved, and I must admit, the last year or so with cyclone recovery and other initiatives we've done, we've kind of struggled with the capacity to really look at that, but we're open for any ideas or suggestions. We'd be happy to partner with others to try and go from that and have it as a springboard to greater things for people. So we do want to do it, we just haven't got to that point.
Thanks.
I just to add on to what Larry has said, so and specifically the Everest Challenge, that I've actually noticed that because I'm there almost every other day, popping in at the marae, and though they might not, there's definitely an increase of foot traffic due to the Everest Challenge, the upgrading of the tracks, and the maintenance of the maunga, the planting, like it's really a community collaboration in order to bring that area up to a great standard that that actually there is, even just this morning before the pōhuri, there were 25 cars parked there walking up Titirangi, and I'm sure there's those early morning ones, which is another load of cars, then you get quite a few throughout the day. So through the day, like the encouragement of that activity, and so it's not really a question, it's really just in support of the activities you are currently running, is that there is a lot more use of titirangi in terms of the walkers, and I think that all of the collaborativeness of all of the events that are happening there, including the Everest Challenge, adds to that and encourages the community to use that facility. So, ngā mihi nui, kia koutou.
Thank you, Councillor Rita.
Okay, we're going to do Ani and then last question, Councillor Gregory. Thank you. You're now muted, Ani. You were unmuted, but you're now muted.
Aha, better?
More good.
Cool. Morning, everybody. Thanks for the for that awesome report, Stefan. I don't have a question, just to compliment and thank Sport Tairāwhiti for the amazing mahi that's happening up the coast. It was a long, many years advocating and fighting to get somebody who is based up in the north. Charlotte does an amazing job, and you also, just to put my Tairāwhiti rep hat on, you also pinched Kaira recently. Sorry
about that.
It's awesome to have Kaira and Shyla up the northern end of the coast, and they are doing some amazing work. It's great for our tamariki, great for our whānau, so just keep on doing the great stuff you're doing. And it was interesting to note, I missed the name, the back office.
Taupua Tairāwhiti.
Oh, ka pai. I'll look that up as well. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Annie.
Last question, Councillor Gregory. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wonder how you are funded.
Yeah. So funding-wise, and it's always a tricky balancing act, especially when you've grown predominantly from national funders, so Sport New Zealand, Te Whatu Ora, one-off things with the Ministry of Education, but then also Te Puni Kōkiri for one-off things, Eastern Central Community Trust. There is a bit of gaming funding We're probably the only sports trust that isn't funded by local government, but we get that because we know the fiscal challenges you're under. So I'm not saying that to try and make you feel guilty. It's just the reality of our region. So yeah, we very much rely on trying to keep those national relationships going for most of our funding.
Thank you. Hi, Stefan, thank you very much. And also from Council, thank you for the work you guys are doing in regards to the planned facilities around Shoulders Road. I know there's a lot of bringing lots of people together in different clubs, and it's not always easy, so thank you also.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks
Thank
a
you all.
lot. Here we go. Warren. Even offer you waters there, one. I'm going to offer you. Absolutely, you make your whatever suits, Warren. You can move that as well if you want to put your notes down. The floor is yours. Welcome to the council. Councillors, if you're not aware, Warren is the relatively new chair in the last few months of the Eastland Wood Council, and I've caught up with Warren last week, and today he's here just to have a quick chat with councillors, and then afterwards we can ask some questions. Thank you, Warren.
Councillors, directors and staff, thanks Heather for looking after me this morning. As Riet has indicated, I've recently taken over the chair role of the Eastern Wood Council. A pretty challenging time. However, I'm pretty proud of it. So, today I'm here to tell you a little bit of a story about the forestry industry. Have you got slides for me, Heather?
I think USB stick.
No, I sent it yesterday.
Give us a minute, Warren, and then we can
That's all right.
see if we can
Catch up.
find it.
So then I'm going to need my glasses.
Oh, you can borrow mine.
There's glasses. I don't wear glasses. So I wanted to tell you that currently the forestry industry is in a massive crisis and at a pretty big turning point. This is not as a result of the Cyclone Hail or Gabrielle, although those two events and others previous last year have exacerbated the situation, but it's largely as a result of the financial and then economic situation. And I think those that are aware that the farmers are struggling in a similar manner. So over the years, our relatively low value commodity product has been sent to a declining Chinese market who have almost sort of overbuilt what they need. And so our industry is in a little bit of a challenging situation right now. So we can't do all that much about our commodity product that we sell, and we can't really manipulate the market itself. But what we can do is actually work a whole lot on the structure of our input costs here in Gisborne and that business environment that is Gisborne.
There we go. Thank you, Heather.
Excuse me for a second. I actually came here to tell you a whole long sob story about the industry and how badly financially we are doing and what I think we should be doing and what help and intervention we need from council. It's kind of like a couple of things have changed in this week, and probably it's going to be bad judgment, but I'd actually like to change tact and tell you a little bit of a different story. Two things changed. Yesterday I was up in the forest, Mango-Poro, and I met Reggie. Reggie is a forest worker in just outside of Perth in Bunbury. He went over there for a year, and 22 years later he's still there. I said to him, "Why, bro, why are you still up? Why aren't you coming back?" He says, "Warren, if there was something for us to do here, we would come back." The other thing that changed for me was I've got a letter from Nadine. I haven't responded to it yet. I'm just sort of trying to reflect on it a little bit. And that sort of changed a little bit about what I want to talk to you about today. If you don't mind, I'll sit down for a bit. I said to Rehet a couple of days ago that I can actually cry on demand. I can't really, but I do it to just protect myself, just in case I do start crying. and then I don't look like a wuss. It looks like I've arranged it, right? So just excuse me. I'm pretty emotionally invested in the industry and I'm pretty emotionally invested here. I remember flying into Wellington with my kids the first time we came to New Zealand, and my little daughter, who still liked me at that stage, and she was quite cute then still, turned around and said to me, "Yes, sien dada, dit is ongelooflik groen hierso. Jou bome gaan verskriklik mooi groei. Daddy, look how beautiful it is here. Look how green it is. Your trees are going to grow beautifully here." Okay. And it is coming from where I come from and how stark and how tough the environment is and how dry it is. We are truly blessed here. And I've been blessed by New Zealand and by Gisborne, and I get up every day, like you, and go and try and show how grateful I am. I don't sleep very well. Since 2018, the floods, rain is not our friend anymore. And it's quite sad. Excuse me. If it is raining when I go to bed, I need to take a pill to sleep. If I wake up and it's raining, I need to take another pill to go back to sleep. On Sunday morning, I didn't take the second pill. I was at the bridge, and I was so excited to see the debris. Not so much that there was slash and debris there, but looking down, I only could count one piece of wood that had been cut. I see forestry as an extremely important part of the landscape here. I think the work that forestry does and the trees do to the land, that's actually my background in terms of erosion control, is something we cannot do without. I'll see in the future people with like really high-tech jobs and like people like Reggie being brought back from the Gold Coast or from Brisbane or from Perth to come back to their family here. So they can have dinner every week and not just once every 2 years when they come back on a holiday. Yeah, sorry. I see a community that is aware of both the benefits of what we do, but also of the risks that are involved in those benefits that are presented by forestry. The reality is that debris will continue to come down these rivers. Some of it is our fault, some of it, and that's really what I went to look at the bridge. I wanted to see where all that bad practice wood was. And while I'm so happy to see it, and I'm not really happy to see the slash, maybe it doesn't come out right, but I'm really happy to see that the bad practice wood, the poor practice wood, is significantly reducing in our waterways. There is going to be continued damage to infrastructure. There is going to be people that don't sleep. There will continue to be aggregation of rivers and that inherent risk of flooding when that does happen. And so we need to keep those trees there. These trees, in my view, were planted for all the right reasons. Possibly not all that well thought through. Possibly a little bit inaccurately. And certainly the other big problem that happened was that they actually planted these trees in a very short space of time. That means, and that those trees are upon us right now. And so that volume of wood, and that volume of trees, and that volume of activity is so much greater than what it should sustainably be. And we are going to take more than one rotation, which is, say, 25, 30 years. It's going to take more than one rotation to get it to a level which is sustainable. Sustainable from an inputs point of view, sustainable from a roading perspective, sustainable from a people perspective. because we've got to get that hump of wood flattened out over that period of 25 years. Our trees get too big, and my daughter was right. The trees grow fantastically well, almost too well, because they get so big that if we don't get to them early enough, they're going to start falling over, and they do. I see that we as industry have made a massive step change since 2018. Unfortunately, we haven't had many opportunities, and I hope that will change from today. We haven't had many opportunities to show that step change and operational improvement that we've made. I think the letter and Nadine and Council and the staff of Council have felt that there's been a massive change in atmosphere here. I hope that soon I won't be coming to Council ever again, and I can go and do my forestry work, which is why I joined up. But the letter was well received by our whole industry, and not only locally but nationally too. The letter indicating and committing to, and we likewise commit to maturely cooperate, maturely find solutions, because we believe we're part of that solution. We're part of the problem, yes, but we're also a massive part of the solution. We've got people that know things, and you've got people that know things, and together we can achieve that sustainable future. Although it's going to be a bumpy ride for the next few years. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be tough. But we have got this opportunity to make a difference, and that literally it allows us and start collaborating in a more mature and effective way is well received, and thank you for that. You just have to have faith in me when I tell you that the operations have improved. There are still people out there that are bad actors, and we need to improve that, and we have to work on that every day. We have faith today, but I welcome visits by all of you, and I'm happy to take you up to the forest and show you that. Me and my colleagues, anyone, just approach anyone, go and see for yourselves the changes and what's happening up there. Yeah, that's it. I'm going for hours.
Okay, some questions. Thank you for that, Warren. A couple of questions from councillors. Councillor Wharehinga, thank you.
Very much, Your Worship. Thank you very much for coming, Warren. I really want to acknowledge you coming as the chair of the Eastern Wood Council, specifically in this time, post-Hale, post-ministerial inquiry into land use, post-Gabriel, all of these things. So I do really want to acknowledge that. You had mentioned the bad actors in our community, and a lot of us in this community who have strong links to those rural areas where forests are, those rural communities where some of these bad actors have some of these forestry blocks. What do you consider the Eastern Wood Council's part in regards to, you spoke about we work on them. What does working on them as the Eastern Wood Council look like?
So, thank you, Councillor. We've had to learn and change. When I first arrived in New Zealand, it looked terrible. I was shocked. And it's quite incredible how quickly you become accustomed to Rome. And although we've done massive work, our Eastern Wood Council focuses on bringing everyone along with us. We still realise that there are people that are acting badly, not necessarily because they mean to or intend to. Some people just make mistakes. Some people don't know it better. And so our job there as Eastern Wood Council is to bring them along with us. So we actively look for people to become members, and we actively involve them in our focus groups and our environmental groups. I know that you're wanting to ask, do we adopt them in? And yes, there are cases where we feel that so strongly that we do actually make efforts to do that, but only after we've tried our best to get them on board. That's a good enough answer.
Larry.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a quick question. Why pine? Is pine the right brand or type of wood that we should be growing on all of our places, or should we be diversifying into other species?
And thank you, Councillor. New Zealand's done a fantastic job of creating critical mass with its pine that allows us to enter into markets and to actually have an impact on markets, which can, to an extent, control pricing. There are absolutely areas where palm is not appropriate, but palm is very appropriate in a lot of the areas. In the work that I hope we'll be doing with council staff in the future, those areas where we're looking to retire it, it may still be best in trees, just may be in a different species. And so we as the industry are very open to that, but along with new species and additional species come a real need for economically viable market for that.
Okay, last question, Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thanks. So you spoke about the saturation of the Chinese market, and we've also got the mill closing down, which is actually the Japanese market. Where do you see it turning around?
The industry is involved, Councillor, thank you. The industry is involved in a transformation plan. It's come at a really bad time. I'll try and do this quickly. It's for the first time ever that we are in a position, or very close to a position, where we can actually compete with processed lumber. A few reasons. We are now able to compete from a labour perspective, because we can now automate and make it high-tech jobs, whereas previously we couldn't compete with Chinese labour. Right? The second reason why it's been really hard to process is because the Chinese are able to use everything of that log. It's only the wind that blows a little bit of the sawdust away that gets lost. The rest of that tree gets used, and that means that they're paying a price, but they're getting value from that whole tree, whereas we in New Zealand haven't been able to do that. It's now come to a point with the bioeconomy, things like activated carbon, pellets, and that sort of thing, where we can actually make use of that other parts of the tree that don't end up in a house. So that's like really exciting times. But we've got some real challenges to get to that because of the economic situation right now.
Hi Warren, thank you for coming to talk to us today, and we look forward to having more discussion, governance to governance, but also what Nadine said, partner to make sure as a region we balance, strike a balance. We find how an industry can operate, create jobs, but we also protect the environment. And I know all councillors around this table would feel the same, that we as a region want to make sure we strike a balance. We do have work ahead of us, we all know it, and I thank you for coming in today and sharing your thoughts with us, but also your commitment to doing your part of the deal, and council will then also do it.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You can stay if you want to, or you can hightail it. Most people hightail it, so don't feel bad. Thanks, Warren. Okay, councillors. Yes, Councillor.
Sorry, you moved far too quickly. Could I make an acknowledgement?
Yes, you can.
So Thursday, Friday last week, Matai, our local centre of excellence, put on 2 days of lectures, which I was lucky enough to attend some of. And I'd just like to congratulate the whole Matai team for an amazing presentation. Online lectures hopefully will be available, and unfortunately the open day was postponed, so I recommend look out for that and get along to it. It'd be awesome. So Matai in Gisborne is just amazing. Thank you.
It was lovely. Councillor Wharehinga and myself were there as well. It was well presented, high-tech science, beautiful day, and unfortunately interrupted by the rain. But thank you for that. Councillors, before we start, I think I need to set the scene for what will happen in the next few hours, because we do have a lot to do and we don't have a lot of time. So if I look at my watch, because we started so late, it's 22:12. We're going to start with our papers soon. We'll move our late papers and get really going. Then Rachel is going to come for a quick 30 minutes, just talk to us. She's caught up with Nadine and myself about the Milu stuff at 12:30 to 1. Then we might even have a working lunch. We'll see how we go through our reports, because it's always famous last words when I think a report is a noting report and then people want to discuss it for 30 minutes. So what I'm asking of you today, I'm really slack with standing orders, and I like the fact that we do that, but I need you to work with me today and stick roughly to standing orders. So if you don't have something to say, don't say it. Please make sure, if you want to make a contribution, ka pai. Otherwise, if you're happy with what has been said and you agree with what has been said, let's keep it moving. So first, I move that these two late items be seconded by Councillor Wharehinga. Did everyone get the two late items? It was just one.
One's been pulled out.
What was withdrawn?
Proposal
Category 3.
The category 3
Category
one.
3. Oh, wow. Someone obviously did not read her email yesterday. So I move that this LGNZ paper be accepted into our agenda. Thank you, Councillor Wharehinga. All in favour? Contrary, carried. Okay, let's get cracking. Put your running shoes on, folks. We are moving to our first paper, and that is the development of the 2020, so we page 30. Hello, Charlotte. We will be looking at the development. So you'll see the next two papers that we have are development of strategies. Thank you, Joe. I'll hand over to you. Joe and Charlotte, take us from here.
Charlotte.
You go, Charlotte.
I will just keep it brief since we are short on time today. I won't repeat. The papers we're sort of starting off on our infrastructure strategy journey, 16 working days to Christmas, feeling the pressure on that one. Since the paper was written, obviously we've started to see some of the detail come out around the coalition government and the list of things in each of the agreements. So we've been taking a look at that this week and what that might mean for the strategy. That's probably all the updates I have at this point.
Joe, anything you want to add as well? The papers are well written and gives us a good backbone of what.
Just to note that we are adapting to the 3-year recovery plan. We still have to do an infrastructure strategy, so that requirement was not removed, but you do have some choices to make, just confirming which assets we include in the strategy. And those, we've identified 4 key significant infrastructure issues. We had a much longer list in the previous strategy, but that was looking 30 years out. This is a much more focused and targeted piece of strategy work.
What is CSP? It's on page 16 under 3-year plan in the first block. It says not audited, CSP required. I couldn't
Special consultative process.
Oh, special consultative. Thank you for that. Here we go. Someone's not on her game this morning. Hey, questions? Councillor Gregory, thank you.
I was just wondering why bridges aren't one of our assets for our strategy.
So the bridges will be included underneath that roading category.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, well, it says roading, that, you know, includes that big,
And that's
wide activity.
footpaths,
Yeah.
cycleways, bridges.
Thank you.
We use the word roading because that's what it says in the Local Government Act under that particular mandated activity.
Councillor Alder.
Page 18, construction costs have increased way higher than all other costs. Infrastructure costs. Is there a reason why infrastructure costs should be increasing at such a high rate?
You're talking about Auckland's report, National Infrastructure Report.
Page 18.
So the Infrastructure Commission have done some work around that, so if you are interested in that, I can send you the link to that. It's not something that we've gone into in great detail with starting this setting out of the strategy.
This was work done nationally to say these are the parameters
So
that.
that's kind of one of their focus
So we can
area,
put
that
through
particular
if you want
commission.
some background reading on what's driving price increases.
Councillor Cranston, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Having been around this table for a long time, the crucial part of each triennial is the long-term plan. I'm just really curious to know the marriage between how this operates within a long-term plan scenario. Do we drop the long-term plan for the whole triennium, or do we just drop it for another year and do it next year? And if we don't, how does the existing long-term plan have? How does that all gel together?
Yeah, so I think I attached it to the paper, I think from memory it's attachment 3. We had an order in council where we have, I guess, special kind of set of things for this long-term plan cycle where we have this 3-year plan in place of a long-term plan. And with that comes sort of different levels of what we would normally do in the 3-year plan as well. I've outlined in the paper what it is for the infrastructure strategy. I'm not sure if Pauline wants to highlight any particular things for the LTP process as a whole.
Just with it, that while
we go into the next 3 years. That's the first 3 years what we consider on a long-term plan. So basically, instead of having a long-term plan which goes from 24 to 34, it will be 24 to 27. So effectively, you're looking at that focus years. We have to repeat it every 3 years, but this is a focus 3 years. So essentially, those 3 years are the beginning of your long-term plan. But it's only 3 years.
Please.
Through the chair, we would start hearing in year 2.5-ish about for the long-term plan, the 10 years ago. So you effectively park that whole plan. We'll draw on some of the information in there that might be relevant for years 1, 2, 3 of this recovery focus plan. And then when we head into year 2, 2.5, that's when we'll restart the long-term strategic 10-year, 30-year infrastructure.
But, I mean, the infrastructure strategy does give you some ability to think further ahead, even though you're only doing a 3-year plan. This time round, the infrastructure strategy does give you a little bit of leeway to think further into the future, although we won't maybe have the detailed budgets and forecasts.
The other question I had was, what does it mean? So strategies has got, it will not be audited. What is the scope of it?
That is the strategy itself, and then all of the supporting information, the spreadsheets, the asset management plans, everything that sits in behind the documents you see, and that's across the entire long-term plan process for this 3-year plan process. So there is no audit on.
Okay, any more questions around these? Well, the next paper is nearly, the same process. But any more questions around the process? It's clear on page 14 what is included, what needs to be in there. Timelines, how we will, because we are now, I hope you all have your running shoes on, because all of this work needs to be signed off by us at the end of June. So there's a lot that needs to, because all of these things sit under the 3-year plan, which we do our prioritisation with now. So there's a lot of extra workshop, lots coming up. Councillor Wharenga.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm happy to move these recommendations and confirm those assets. It's logical that they're included in our infrastructure strategy, and also acknowledging the significant issues, the 4 significant issues under our recommendations. So I'm more than happy to move these recommendations, Your Worship.
You have a question, Councillor Telford. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ria.
Yeah, just for my ignorance, on page 14, can I please have, on the 4 identified issues to do with developing the strategy, point B, can I have the explanation of the meaning of that?
Yeah, so we've pulled that through from the 2021 strategy, and it's sort of 2 parts. Some of it's around community expectations, and then the other part is around consent conditions, any requirements around our infrastructure when we're renewing building, etc., which may be different from when it was originally put in place, or for new infrastructure based on new plans and any new national policy statement requirements, etc., that have come through. So that was what the title was particularly focused on. Community expectations, and then a regulatory
regulation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Pakuruhuriwai, and then Councillor Parama.
Thank you, Your Worship. This mic is not playing with me today. Thank you for that, Charlotte. I guess my question was, there's a whole lot of work gone in here. I would love to total or second Councillor Wharenga, but I'm just concerned about the government that we've got, and whether or not are we going to be re-litigating all of this. We move it today, let you guys go ahead and do the mahi, and then we might have to come back and revisit all of this once we know the direction of the government.
As the significant issues are quite high level, I guess the detail that falls under them, we will look at, as I mentioned, trying to look into more detail on what may be coming down the pipeline now. Now we have a little bit more info about the coalition agreements as part of developing, I guess, the detail that sits under how those issues are framed in particular.
So well, I think
yes and no.
I mean, the issues remain. They are the significant issues. It's how maybe you address and prioritise what you do in response to the issues. That may get changed in response to what investments available from, for example, the National Land Transport Fund.
Supplementary question, Your Worship. Just in regards to, because I would love to ensure that Te Ao Māori, as it's featured in here, continues. What's coming currently out, the speak that's coming out at the moment is quite frightening from a tangata whenua perspective. So I'm more than willing to second Councillor Wharehinga. Means that we're not going to, that Te Ao Māori partnership and opportunities remains, and our commitment to Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you for that. Councillor Parata.
Kia ora, yes, I sort of had the same kinds of whakaaro. Mostly I'm quite heartened to see that the Gisborne District Council is moving forward with our priorities, and understand that we may have to make some adjustments and some details as the direction of the new government is more known. And I think just to support what Councillor Pahuru Huriwai is saying, that the Gisborne District Council have been leaders in the partnership space for such a long time, that I would like to hope that regardless of the direction of the coalition government, that we continue to be partners going forward. But other than that, I support the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillors, are you ready? Did you put your hand up or did you wave at me? I have a mover in Councillor Wharehinga. I do not want to rush people, so if you feel rushed, slow me down, but I'm getting sweaty because I am realising, as I look at the clock, that we have a wastewater meeting starting at 2. And we've got a visitor in the middle, and we still have so much to get through. So if you feel rushed, please slow me down, but I am the timekeeper. Ka pai. Mover Councillor Wharehinga, seconder Councillor Ria, all in favour. Contrary, carried. So the next is also one of the building blocks underneath our 3-year plan, and that will be a building block that goes in our kitty as we sign off our 3-year plan. So Pauline, the floor is yours.
So this is just a sort of an introduction, but it is quite, as the Bishop has said, it is a building block. It's one of the umbrellas that we actually have. And the 2 umbrellas, if you like, the financial strategy, and then on the other side of it is you also have the infrastructure strategy. If you like, the pendulum or scales, both of them are trying to actually come in alignment, one not top of for the others because there's other considerations. So they have to talk to one another. And we have to talk to what are our current situations and what are we doing and and what is the strategy for us going forward for the next 3 years. You will get more information on the development of it and what actually feeds into it. But as it says in the recommendations, we believe that the overarching key directions or the key strategies, what we're focusing, remains the same. The details behind them may change a little bit, but they still are the focus and the areas that we are needing to take into consideration and have. 2 key measures, or 2 elements of this that are mandatory within the financial strategy are the rates increases, the total rates revenue that you actually have compared to the previous year. And we express that as a percentage. That is a mandatory measure and a cap that you will have to consider as we go through this process. The other part of that is a mandatory measure is the debt. The debt that we have and then what we're actually working through as we go through the next 3 years. These will come back to you in forms, but it's just to say, how does that financial strategy sit along with that infrastructure strategy to do what we have, but we have to consider those 2 elements as we go through this. But happy to take any questions.
Councillor Gregory, thank you.
Thank you. I've just got a question on the recommendation. We have to have as practicable in that. Can we not just have keep rates affordable? and also on F, grow and enable our rainforest. Just wonder how we grow it. I know we can enable it.
So some of the things, it's a focus area that you actually have, and so part of that is what is your economic strategy, how you link with others within the community and actually make sure that we still focus on that and how we can grow it. And that may be simple things that if we do have, how do we actually have our connectors of our roads? How do we actually make sure that we're of close proximity to Napier or whatever? How do we make that better so we actually can grow it? So it's kind of looking at what are the levers that we have and what are the constraining, that we make sure that we focus on that and we consider that as we go through for the next 3 years. Yeah, I guess the practical, I hear what you're saying, and as an absolute measure, yeah, but I hear what you're saying with regards to that, and that can be changed if you want, but just recognising that it affects different people in different ways as well. Thank you.
Councillor Alder, Councillor Foster, Councillor Cranston.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too, looking at the financial side of things and how they've changed in the last 12 months is causing me to sweat a bit. I'm sure it is you too, Pauline. Throughout this report, and thank you for it, it's very comprehensive, covers all the areas we need to look at, except, I believe, for one, and that is the area of frugality and how, and we all know that you can make a lot of money by saving money. Every time I drive to town, I hit town and there's a speed sign that says slow down. Constant reminder that there is a speed limit in town. Within the council, is there any similar speed limit suggestion in that we need to save money?
So you're right in what you haven't got the whole strategy there in its entirety. But it does explain it when you go into it, and it says what are the ways that you look at and what are the levers that you have that allows us to do what we need to do, and under the umbrella of what you can provision for. And so some of the things that it says here is just look at the levels of service that you provide. It looks at, so that's your spending and what you actually do, as well as the other component is how do you actually get your revenue from other sources. So you're quite right, it does explore that. You've only got the bare bones of what this, but the financial strategy does talk about that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Foster, thank you.
Thank you. We've just experienced another huge event, another huge amount of woody debris on our beaches, and that is going to cause an extra lot of costs to us or somebody. Does that come under focus of critical activities? I mean, it's starting to become such a huge problem that it almost needs a little item of its own to be made significant, because you know we're going to just keep on getting this happening. Looks like, unfortunately, regularly, and yeah, and we're going to have to pay for it somehow. So where does that be identified in our financial strategy?
It will be. It is a big element. It's underlying our context of what we do and what you have to do, and what are we facing. So the context will take that, just like your critical activities or your infrastructure, what is it that we need to do and be aware of, and how are we providing for it? So it will encompass that to the extent that you're giving a level of service or doing that or enabling that with the funding or whatever. It will then be transposed to the other side of it, which is this is the umbrella statement.
Yeah.
The next part of that that's trying to feed down to is what do we provision for in our budgets. And so that it starts with that, but that's what you're wanting to get out of that, to find out what have you got to provide for it.
As long as it's provision. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thanks. Recommendation 2C, increase and optimise the use of alternative revenue streams. Is that a hopeful recommendation, or is there something we don't know about that's an opportunity out there? Are there opportunities
I guess it's one of your founding measures, and that you'd always look at what are the opportunities of what you do, and how do you look at providing with it. So again, it's something that we would be continuously looking at. What everything that we have, and we have to take to that the forefront of how we do any financial strategy. Doesn't mean to say we might get everything in there, but it has to be a focus of what we do and how we do. We would be considering simple things. How does it we do with our what today? How do we do with our other things? How do we leverage as much as we possibly can, or enable us to do what we actually have to do with other support elsewhere? But yes, that's one of the considerations that we would be taking through to the financial strategy. Councillor Telfer, Councillor Ria, thank you.
Yeah, Pauline, thanks for this. Probably following on from Colin a little bit, and after a finance and audit meeting as well, I'd like to sort of see something in our strategy that really looks at how we spend our OPEX and are we getting value for money, because we are very, very good at putting our hand out to government for more money, but I don't think we're actually that sharp at actually really having some deep dives into how some of this money's spent. So I'd like to sort of see it as a focus point going forward, because you know, if we can show government that we are using that money wisely and accountably, you know, they will be willing to give more. But and ratepayers' money as well, you know, a big part of our money is ratepayers' money. So I'd sort of like to see it as a maybe doing some more deep dives on are we spending that money well, and are we getting value for money, because you know, I think there's some areas we can really
Thank you.
I have two pathways. So the first one was just along the lines of what Councillor Foster asked, and it was in terms of so in the previous paper we talked about the coastal protection works and adding that to the infrastructure. So now that that is a part and is confirmed as being a part of our infrastructure strategy moving forward, it would then mean that we are able to specifically allocate money in order to, you know, in order to fix up these the beaches and the stormwater and the drains and the things like that. I'm just trying to connect them together and see the cohesiveness, like, because Larry did ask about, you know, because we have been left in the lurch, because we also talked about this yesterday at Audit and Finance, where we didn't budget for all of the work on the beaches, and we were having to pull all that spending from somewhere. So I'm asking now that in the last paper we've put coastal protection works under infrastructure, that now that translate into actual finance towards those types of things.
And that's the decisions and prioritisations that you will go through.
This is part of the work.
Yeah,
Right.
so that's the balance, as you say, if we want to increase the level of service over here, and what is the funding that you actually want to do, how do you balance between what you actually need to do and what are your priorities,
and who pays for it.
And who pays for it, because basically if we don't have funding for it, and if it's an increased cost that we have, there are limited means of actually getting that apart from rates.
And just my final, thank you for that answer. My final one was around the, I've lost the page, but it's the, one of the points for, that pertains to, this is going to fall out of my mind now. Sorry, I'm feeling that, you know.
Remember what I said to you, we are so tight for time, but we're not going to rush.
Okay, so it was D, ensure beneficiaries of services pay the cost. Can you please define that? Because does that mean that, say for example, if we are upping rates for coastal protection, but a community like Te Puia or a community like Motu, who don't have a coast, you know, they have rivers and stuff, does that mean that it might look like a variation of rates and fees increases from community to community?
Pretty much you've got it. It's basically what we call a targeted rate, in most cases, as opposed to rating everybody generally. If you've defined that some people that receive the benefit more than others, we targeted those properties in those areas that are receiving those services. But yes, essentially what you're saying, we target those where we can, with who are receiving the services.
Thank you.
We will see as we go through our rates, we will decide what is the benefit, like say what we spoke about as councillors about the flats. If we say that people on the flats have a certain benefit, there might be a targeted rate for, say, 70% of that rate, but we also acknowledge that the whole region benefits from it as well. So then we will put a 30% maybe and a 10%. So we will be able to then decide how much we invest in there, but also how the pizza is cut and who pays for what. Last question, Councillor Wharehinga, thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I do want to echo my support for previous comments in regards to spend, and from a strategic perspective, I feel like it would be maybe to have that in here, and it's not based on what the new central government will look like or anything like that. I just think from a principal strategic point of view, it makes sense that we have something in there. So if Pauline, would you be comfortable with E being changed to manage debt and spend prudently?
Expenditure, that's not a problem. I mean, yes, and that's fine. Whatever that it is for your strategic directions, we can put it in here. And what you're only getting the bare bones in terms of the financial strategy has a fairly good, strong background to say, what is it that we're facing, what are the costs, and what do we look like, and what have we actually had to prioritise over something over the other. So you've probably only got the bare bones of those parts that are there, but these are the strategic directions of what it is. But in terms of it, it is your strategy as such, and those are the key elements that you want to have a focus on. That's entirely fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, the detail of the paper already speaks to it, but like I just have heard a few around the table kind of mention it, so it might, and if there was no strong opposition from you as our CFO, I thought it might be a good idea for us to include it in there.
Okay.
I'm happy to move those with
Thank
that.
you, Councillor Wharehinga. Seconder, Councillor Foster. If there are no more questions or queries, I'll put it all in favour. Contrary, carried. Thank you for that, Pauline. So, councillors, we move to page 59. We've got the TRMP update. So as you know, in June we get a regular update. So Joe, the floor is yours.
Oh, it's up. Kia ora tātou. So it is an update report. There's no decisions at this point in time, so I will keep it brief. I do have Drew online for any slightly more technical questions. I guess the key piece of work in the last quarter has been further working on our freshwater engagement, and there are multiple meetings happening across the Rohi with Hapu, with advisory groups being set up, our regional freshwater advisory group having, I think, monthly meetings at the moment. We have now reset that program to allow for the extension we have to the time frame out to the end of 2026. So we'll report back to you next year with what that looks like. But essentially it looks like giving ourselves until mid-2026 to notify all those updated freshwater plans. And that also gives us a little bit of time to see what's happening with the new direction from the central government too. Although, of course, as regional leaders, it is your choice about how we manage the region and the district locally that reflects our place and space and aspirations. So that's just something to bear in mind as we go through the process. The big piece of work for the urban growth and development work stream has been the release of the draft future development strategy, which you've seen, heard about in depth. So that's live now, the website's live, and we have those community sessions next week. So if you can get the message out to people to come along to particularly the session on the 5th of December, register and find out more about the strategy, that would be great. I know there's been a lot in social media because of all the rain and everything, so I think our messaging may have got a bit lost. And then the regional policy statement, still a lot of technical work underway, and also some very preliminary drafting, and we'll be looking at in the new year, probably with some workshop sessions or some more informal briefing sessions, so we can start to bring you up to speed with what that regional policy statement means, what some of the work that we've done technically has shown us, and what the engagement we're getting from the community has shown us, and then leading up to a draft the mid 2024 onwards, once you've adopted your 3-year plan. That will be your next chunky piece of work. So I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Ria and Councillor Foster. So these are noting reports, so these are, yeah.
Thank you for the report, Joe. I want to move the report. I just had a partai about number 66 on page 71, the consultation fatigue. So consultation fatigue is very real right now. There are multiple organisations, local and national, across multiple central government organisations, environmental specific, water specific, climate change specific, and they are all trying to get a minute of our hapu, iwi and community time for that consultation process. So I just wanted, that is so real, I see it happening. And so is there an opportunity or a want to maybe regionally work a bit more collaboratively, detailed maybe timeline planning of hui in advance across organisations, so that, you know, so if I am my hapu and I get the timeline and okay, right, so this one's here and this one's spaced out from here, these two are going to work together because they cover the same topic or they have the same outcomes. It just makes that whole consultation a lot easier.
That has been a long-held aspiration of the council. We've still not quite nailed it, but we are ever optimistic and ever hopeful. At least as a council, we're doing our very best to coordinate better, because even within council, that can be an issue in terms of competing hui or multiple hui within the same week with the same community. And then when you bring in other regional entities trying to engage, let alone national, the picture does get very complicated. So definitely the aspiration and intent is there. Conscious that we've not quite delivered on it yet, but it is an ongoing focus for us as a council.
I mean, absolutely. Nationally, silo practice is the given practice, but yeah, if we could do something locally, and I'm happy to volunteer to help you out with that if you need some help. And so is Rhonda's putting her hand up to help with that as well.
We've taped that.
We've got a working group now. We're
good. Good. Thank you for moving the paper. Who else? Councillor Foster and then Councillor
Just a quick
Alder.
question. On page 61, under technical work underway, could you please explain where or what is an outstanding coastal natural character area, and where are they?
Yep. So we are just having that work done to find out where they are. In terms of what makes an outstanding natural character area, it's really an area that has not been modified by human influence to any great extent. So that means a lack of structures, a lack of obvious human activity or intervention. So in a way, it's almost, they tend to have very high biodiversity values, tend to have very high cultural values as well. So if you think of some of your more pristine areas, I don't want to say anything because the mapping's not been completed here and we've not engaged with people on it, but I will go to the Bay of Plenty, which I am familiar with. So for example,
so Marine Reserve obviously would
yeah, a number of the offshore islands are outstanding natural characters in Bay of Plenty. Not many of their inshore areas were. It may be different here, but it tended to be their offshore islands, like Tuhua, for example, Motuhua.
Thank you.
Page 61, the plan is budgeted to cost us 65.8 million over the years 21 to 31. Two questions: is it running to budget? And two, is there any possibilities there could be savings?
Through you, we are slightly under budget at the moment, but we have not progressed quite as fast as we would have liked due to weather events, COVID, and also it's quite difficult to find staff as well. So we are slightly behind schedule. Financially smart and strong is one of our council operational values, so we work to that all the time in the processes that we use in our procurement process.
Thank you. So councillors, I have a mover in Councillor Ria, I have a seconder in Councillor Alder. If there are no more questions, thank you for the noting report, thank you for keeping us up to date. And councillors, make sure you can see those previous reports as well to keep yourself up to date. All in favour? 1-3 carried. It is now on to page. Welcome, Chris.
Chris has offered, this is an information report.
72.
Yes, 72 on mode shift and active travel strategy. We're happy to take questions now, but if there is any additional feedback or you want some more time to think about it, we are happy to take feedback by email and then incorporate that into the work programme from here. But if you need any questions or clarification now, then Chris is here.
Just very aware you're under time pressure, so. Given that, I will take the report as read and take questions.
Councillor Cranston, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, really good. As you know, I'm on Tairāwhiti Cycle and Walkway Trust, and we did have some discussions about this. So, developing an active travel network is critical for our future, and this makes a lot of sense. There's really good linkages through it, and, you know, so pretty happy with what I'm reading there. And pretty happy with the ammunition it's going to give me as I fight for the Tairāwhiti Walkway Cycleway as well. There's some great sentences in there, like the clear is planning links where vehicle proximity, accidents, risks, emissions, noise and stress are all avoided. The most common barrier is safety, and attractiveness is the key element. So I'm going to hold on to those paragraphs as I fight for the Tairāwhiti Cycle Walkway. My question is, what will we be deciding in December? This is just a noting report, but you've indicated that there will be a decision report in December, so what will that look like?
Should say decision report in January. I apologise.
January, sorry.
Yes, indeed. So that will be consultation on the draft document. So there'll be it'll be the combination of what you've seen and so on, plus some more developed thinking around the principles and policies in the front end, the strategic context, this region. This is a high-level brief of that, basically.
Because if I was going to challenge anyone, anything, it would be the fact that the Tairāwhiti Cycleway Walkway is a circular indication on the map going up Aberdeen Road and going along the riverway, and I don't think we need both, so that will be a challenge, something I will challenge.
Apologies. In the report, and it may have gotten lost in translation through the editing and so on, we wanted to highlight both the options that are currently on the table for that corridor. So in terms of achieving the Tairāwhiti linkage, so we're doing in the high schools and so on, there's an on-road option and an in-river option that were being handled by Stantec. Because that process is happening basically in parallel with the work that I'm doing, I haven't always been able to incorporate it and speak to it eloquently. So as that report from Stantec came down when this report was already completed.
When will we see that as a council? Stantec report.
The Stantec report, that will be a question for Tina Minimus and Dave Hadfield. I can't answer that right now. I've not seen the report yet either, but actually I may even have we might have a high level view of the Stantec information rather than an actual report. So that's as I understand it. But yeah, I can't provide any more clarity on what's happening with the better off funding and the Tairāwhiti cycleway in terms of what's happening in flight. I'm looking at the strategic context for the entire network.
Can I be, or we be informed about whether we might be able to see the centre report?
We'll get you an update from.
Thanks.
Councillor Foster.
Yeah, just great report, and it's a thing that we need to look at for the future for sure. But you know, I know that I just noticed that this morning we were all over the meeting at Tairāwhiti, and everyone there was one person, one car, and everybody that left there was one person and one car. And so how do we change that culture? And I know it's possibly not to do. Well, we all need to look at our own ability to get from A to B and how we do it, but how do we, and I sense that the strength of this is going to be future generations, so we've got to be the one that says, hey, look, we're doing it wrong and this is the way we should be doing it in the future. Particularly one person, one car, which is, you know, it's part of the New Zealand culture, not just here. So how does that work, and in what way are we educating the new generations and to because public transport really here in Gisborne is I don't think is much of an option really, because we've got buses and they're not used, and so walking and cycling and skateboarding and all the other alternatives is the direction. Yeah. So how do we change that culture of one car, one person? Because I don't want to change.
Thank you, Councillor. But you hit the nail on the head. I'm not sure how long an answer I'm allowed to give you under the presidency, but there's a lot of content in the report that covers the various ways that we'll try and address that. The mode shift plan is all about that, and there needs to be a lot of development thinking. The behaviour change piece is critical. We definitely start with the next generation, start with schools and so on, because kids also change their parents' behaviour as well. There's a huge amount of benefits to getting out, getting more active and being more physical as well. So the incentives are certainly there, and we need to create the active travel network obviously is key to this piece, because you need to have safe options to prompt people to get out of their cars and take other options for slow trips. But public transport is also part of it. We also need to consider our public transport service as well through the RLTP. That's something that's on deck. So there's a lot to be done in that space. It's not going to happen overnight, but the mode shift plan is certainly hopefully the nucleus of some good work in that space.
Councillor Rea, then Councillor Parata, then Councillor Pahuru-Huriwa.
I just want to say that we had that conversation, it's remove the parking. It's remove the parking, then you don't have any other option but to walk there. But that's tomorrow's headache, I suppose. I just want to thank you for the report. It was really awesome, and I actually just want to put a plug in there. I personally live right at the back of the Tairawhiti upper catchment, and it would be absolutely amazing to see that cycleway extend out to Grays Bush. There are so many school groups that utilise Grays Bush, so many community groups that utilise Grays Bush, and if they could come from the hospital and then come off that busy state road to actually follow the Tairāwhiti River all the way down to Grays Bush, not only would it, one, bring attention to the river, and so therefore the river would have to be paid attention to, manicured, looked after and maintained, but it also gives an amazing option for especially school groups who I think would really utilise the opportunity to be able to ride a bike all the way out to Grays Bush. So just chucking that out there. Thank you.
I have Councillor Parata and then Councillor Pahuru-Huriwa. Thank you.
Kia ora, the report references Te Tairāwhiti. I just want to confirm that this is a Tairāwhiti report, or is it a Tūranganui-a-Kiwa one? That's my question.
Is it an urban area or is it whole of?
Both plans are considered to apply to the entire region. Absolutely, Tairāwhiti.
Is it? I'm wondering where's the rest of Te Tairāwhiti if it's a Tairāwhiti-wide plan?
The mapping, that's a very fair question. The mapping that we're focused on in this report really does cover the Gisborne urban area, as that's the key stuff we wanted to get highlighted for heading into the RLTP and stuff that we want to get funded through ensure that it was in front of everyone for the regional land transport plan process. There is some work being done in Tolaga Bay, and when we're trying to attract funding from Waka Kotahi, they are looking to get the maximum shift of people out of vehicles and into active travel. That's how they're approaching what cycleways they fund and what they don't. So and that lens needs to be applied to our townships and to our greater region wider. So yeah, very good point.
Yeah, I'm conscious of that. If we say Te Tairāwhiti, then we need to be referencing Te Tairāwhiti, the whole region, and if not, Tūranganui-a-Kiwa is what we're talking about, and there's a difference. But I also just want to say the people that use their vehicles the most are the people that live up the coast, because we have the furthest to go. Figuring out ways to reduce our ability to, use one car every time we go to town, and we do that often and constantly, we create more emissions than anybody else because of the sheer isolation of coastal communities. I don't see that reflected, and I just wanted to note that essentially. Thank you.
Councillor Pahuru-Huriwa, thank you.
This mic is very sensitive today. Thank you for the report, and I tautoko absolutely everything that Councillor Parata has just said. I had the same thoughts. I was reading the report and it is clearly a Tūranganui Kiwa strategy and doesn't include the whole region. The whole region goes from Pōtaka in the north and out to our right out to down to Te Kuriapawa. So how is this plan connecting the rest of our region into Tūranganui-a-Kiwa? We have to go into Tūranganui-a-Kiwa to do our business, as Councillor Parata has stated. There are no public transport options. You'll often see horses being ridden because that is an actual mode of transport, especially when the roading network is shut. And I actually saw 2 horses bolting down the road in Gisborne, in Tūranganui-a-Kiwa the other day. So I don't see any mention of horses, and maybe that should be included in the strategy somewhere, because people are using them as a mode of transportation because of the cost of fuel. At our last meeting, Lil Ward presented the strategies around the keeping our tamariki safe and encouraging better walkways so that they can get around our rural townships safer, and that was fantastic. There needs to be a link here somewhere, I think, connected to that decision we made not too long ago. Kia ora.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship, I think we can definitely add in a reference to that township planning. I would say on page 82 and some of those initiatives outlined to support mode shift, I acknowledge a lot of them are Tūranganui-a-Kiwa focused. A couple of things that do touch the whole region is the public transport review, which is currently underway, and that is looking at ways to improve the public transport connections along the coast in particular. And the school travel plans, they will apply to schools throughout the region, not just within the urban area as well, the Gisborne urban area too. But definitely take your point that a lot of the focus is currently on
Last question, Councillor Tibble.
It's not a oh, here, I'll just spray it, get it out. Is it more helpful in light of the framing by Councillor Huriwai, Pahuru Huriwai and Parata, for the exclusions to be clear in the paper, as opposed to the obfuscation that it's not there?
I would definitely like to answer no at this time. I think you've raised a very good point, and there was some significant debate pre-cyclone when this mahi got started, and obviously had to be shelved for a period of time, about whether or not it be an exclusively Tūranganui-a-Kiwa document, because that's where we're going to attract the most waka kotahi funding. In fact, probably the only waka kotahi funding. Anything that's out of the city is probably going to be externally funded at this point under current conditions. That said, the mode shift plan and the active travel strategy, they are a plan and a strategy that provide objectives, principles, policies, design methodologies, and so on. And they can absolutely provide mapping as well in the active travel strategy that cover our the townships right across.
and can support, funding,
Indeed.
proposals, or township planning, or when a township plan's coming to council for funding, it can say, well, we tick these boxes of your strategy that you've adopted regarding active transport.
Okay, so just as a secondary, what I heard you say and how I've interpreted what I heard you say is that your documents allow you to put proposals to funders who will look to see what your works will do, but when the councillors are asking this about where are the rural communities inside it, the concern is not seeing that, but you've just explained that their obfuscation is because the methodology in your paper is pitched towards people being able to fund that, and that's an incidental to the right-hand side of it that may be in the future advanced by the methodologies you have here. Can you see how easy it is to feel like you are being neglected?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm just making that point so that the chain of how the thinking in relation to the way you write this report becomes clearer about why we don't hear ourselves in it, if you're rural. Kia ora. Thank you.
Councillors, do I have a mover and a seconder? And as Chris said, happy to receive more feedback. And like I said earlier, if you feel rushed, please slow me down. But I just also am mindful that we have a huge piece of work that we still need to go. Moved by Councillor Cranston, seconded by Councillor Gregory. If there are no more questions, I will put it all in favour. Aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you, Chris. Councillors, we move to page 99. This is the amendment to the National Environmental Standards for Plantation Forestry, which is now called the National Environmental Standards for Commercial Forestry. Joe, thank you for this report. It is a lot in there.
A lot in a short report.
It's a lot in a short report, but you have crunched it in there. I will leave it to you to walk us through this, and then we'll open the floor to councillors. This is a noting report, but I do understand councillors might and will have questions.
Absolutely.
So Joe, I will leave it to you, and then we'll open the floor.
I do have just Jocelyn Allen, our consent manager, online, and it was her team that pulled together the bulk of this report and are fast becoming the experts in the new NES. It is an overview of what we see as changed compared to the old standards and what some of the implications may be, particularly for our consenting processes and our applicants in that process. As has been touched on earlier this morning, we are looking to a future plan change and working with the industry, with Manawhenua, with the community on exactly how that plan change rolls out. So that will be a paper for another day when we go into more of that detail. But I'll let Jocelyn speak to the paper and in particular the consenting implications. Kia ora, Jocelyn.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. So the paper outlines the general changes to the resource consent process. As you will have read through the paper, it increases the scope and increases the ability for, in some areas, for planners to have a more robust assessment when it comes to some of those more susceptible land use areas, and particularly around fresh water. It also includes a new permitted activity standard for slash management, which in fact does create a new consenting pathway. So what it will most likely include an increase in resource consents for our applicants, but we've been working quite closely with them on what that means, and particularly around the transition. And I will take, I know we're a little bit short of time, so I will take the paper as read and happy to answer any questions.
I think I laboured too hard on short of time because it feels to me everyone is walking on eggshells. I do not want people to feel rushed. If you feel we are moving too fast, I want everyone to feel that they have the opportunity to ask their questions and get the answers they deserve. So please, Jocelyn, we are not rushing through anything. At the end of the day, if it comes down to it, we will keep on till we're finished. But I do want everyone to feel, I will not talk about the time again, but I do want people to feel like they can ask what they need to ask. Councillor Thompson.
On page 102, says the forestry industry, there's a new rule, unrealistic. Can you sort of expand it? Does that mean it's not possible, or what do they mean by unrealistic?
Did you hear the question, Jocelyn?
I did, yes. I think that the particular angle that might have been geared towards is the slash, and including some new slash management provisions. We were signaled that under no, in most cases, their forestry owners and practitioners would not be able to comply with those permitted activity standards. However, it would just trigger a controlled activity consent in that case, with some realistic matters for control there. So, but I think it's something that we're keen to work out with them as we all as we all grapple with what it means to our workload, really.
Yeah, so they mentioned the application to breach the new standards, and one of the reasons it's unsafe to remove the slash. What sort of percentage are we? Is that the bulk of it, or what percentage are we looking?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yes, we haven't exactly worked out those details just yet. We are having the beginning of several hui starting next week with the forestry industry to really work out what, practically what that might look like on various topographies, and we have other matters to consider before the council can make a position on those matters. So.
Yes, Councillor Johnson.
They talk about the 3B overlay being not suitable for commercial forestry. I'm just wondering how much 3B overlay have we got, and how much 3B overlay is already planted?
Through you, Your Worship, that process of identifying exactly what this overlay is and how much land it covers is underway at the moment. Some of it is planted in commercial forestry, some of it isn't. And when we say not suitable for commercial forestry, should probably just clarify they're not suitable for the clear fell plantation forestry that maybe we see at the moment. It doesn't mean that there may be some economic uses that we can find, and that's really where we need to work together as a region to figure out what those may be. Or it may be that no, there's no economic use we can find for that land, and then that will be a different question about how we fund the transition into a more sustainable long-term land use.
Have we got a very rough percentage? Is it half? Or?
I'd have to check. We have a rough number, but I don't have it in my head at the moment, and I don't want to give you the wrong information now. I'd rather come back with a more comprehensive package of information.
Councillor Ria.
I had two questions. So the first one was, I was reading the new permitted activity conditions, and I was just making note that there was nothing in the paper, and it may be that that is the wrong place for what I'm about to ask, but of the effects of surrounding forestry on Tairawhiti historical native remnant forests. For example, the Wahirere domain, which is borderlined by current forestry, and the effects that that forestry now has on that forest as the pine needles come down when the rain comes down and the pines are on the hill, and then those pine needles come in and they sort of smother all the undergrowth. So just looking for, is this the place for some type of protection of remnant forests within our region because of the effects of forestry?
So through you, Your Worship, I don't believe the NES specifically captures that point. It captures the effects on significant biodiversity areas within forestry, but potentially not those adjacent effects. That is possibly something better to look at through the wider Tairāwhiti plan review in terms of how we protect those remnant forestry areas from any activities and not, specific to forestry.
Thank you. And my second question was, can you please define the term outstanding freshwater body?
Oh, that's what, who asked earlier about?
Yeah, it was in another paper,
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Through you, Your Worship, these are, just to clarify, these are terminologies that tend to come through national direction, these outstanding features and characteristics. And it's then something as a region we need to decide what is an outstanding water body. So some of that work was done in the current regional water plan back in 2015. And it depends again on a variety of values, a mixture of environmental, cultural, recreational, sure if economics in the mix or not, I can't quite remember, but it becomes a regional based exercise to determine how you assess what's outstanding and then what is categorised as outstanding and how that's mapped and defined.
So lastly, just on the same thing, can we please ensure that that these outstanding freshwater bodies are viewed holistically, that tributaries, drains, all those things that contribute to that outstanding freshwater body, so that it's not existing sort of singularly. There are all these things that add to the impact. Thank you.
Councillor Foster, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Someone else had his hand up. Mr. Councillor Telfer. I'm not asleep, Councillor Telfer. He goes first and then Larry, you go.
Yeah, look, firstly, just on page 103, point 19, the amended standards enable councils to control the location of plantation and continuous cover forests within the area through rules within their district or regional plans. The Ministry for the Environment has emphasised that the primary purpose of introducing these changes is to enable local authorities to make choices guided by community input. Now, this change came in, I think it was the 5th of November, the NESCF change. If we go back to page 99, it also says there that TRMP rules and policies can now direct the location of afforestation. This must go through a plan change process. How long does that plan change process take? Because this came in on the 5th of November. I'm trying to establish the link here between, currently we've got properties that are in front of the OIO for sale to forestry in our region. So if council has now, under these rules, got the right to say what can go where, is there any link to the OIO? Because OIO can go and grant this and say, yes, you can buy this, and then what? Then they have to come to us and we can say, well, actually, no, you can't plant that. So, you know, how long is this going to take? This came in on the 5th of November. How long is it going to take until council has actually got the clout to be able to say yes and no?
So through you, Your Worship, plan changes do take time, and rightly so, because you not only have to have the information and evidence base to weigh up the pros and cons of any proposal that we're suggesting in terms of a plan change, but there's also a significant amount of engagement that has to be had with Tāngata Whenua, with the local community, with those most impacted by the changes, which will be landowners and the forestry industry. So we will be coming back in the new year with an outline of what we are thinking in terms of plan changes, some of which was alluded to this morning in terms of the letter that's gone to the industry, and we're happy to share that with councillors too.
It was already sent out.
Seen it, so you've already so it will be a two-phase process. The first stage of the work is looking at this catchment-based approach to harvest management, and then some default harvest management rules for those who don't want to, if people don't want to participate in the catchment management collaborative process. Then the second phase is looking more broadly about land use on our most vulnerable soils, so that's been referred to as the 3B or the purple zone, and that probably won't be limited to forestry, because it's not only the forestry land use that can have unwanted impacts when you use that really vulnerable land, and that will take a little bit longer. Typically a plan change, you'd say if you got it done within 2 years, you were doing pretty well, just to give you a little bit of context.
So is that saying that we've got something that's been implemented on the 5th of November this year, and we can't actually use that legislation until you're saying 2 years? That seems ludicrous to me, personally.
And through you, Your Worship, we don't know what changes will be put in place in terms of different consenting pathways, streamlining the current Resource Management Act. That's been signalled quite strongly in the coalition agreements, but we don't know how that will play out yet.
Councillor Alder.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two questions. First one, how do our field inspectors, I don't know if that's their term, how do they feel about these restrictions on page 109? Do they feel they're workable, enforceable, and are they going to have some way to solving problems?
Thank you, Your Worship. That's a big question, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the compliance and monitoring team. I don't think they'd thank me for it.
No.
I know that they're looking at these regulations. They are what they have to work with.
No vibe.
You can't go on vibe.
So second question, and we rushed through the first part today, so I missed asking it, but it's right back to page 11, don't bother going again. But it was my question I asked about fire protection in the forest. And reading your answers, Joe, and some of the reports, am I right in assuming that involvement in forest protection, fire protection by forestry companies is not compulsory? Is they may or may not take it up? That's the feeling I got reading the reports. And if that's the case, is that good enough? Should we not know that all those companies out there are fully 100% behind a combined effort on fire?
Through you, Your Worship, you may be better off discussing with Warren Rance the details of fire protection, but I would say it is in the forest owners' best interests to ensure that they have adequate fire protection. You know, that's a significant amount of an asset that's vulnerable to fire.
It's not compulsory though, that's what I was reading.
Just a quick question. It's page 101. I just want a bit of clarity because on 5 it's got new standards will also enable councils to consider more factors when making rules about forestry in their plans, including its location. That was A. Then under B, require carbon foresters, and there's C and D as well. And to me, that looks like they're more general for the whole, you know, one-size-fits-all type thing, rather than more specific to our ability for our region to make those requirements separate for us. Require carbon foresters to plan out how they will meet environmental requirements, different forestry activities on their sites. So if this is a one-size-fits-all, well then I've got a little bit of a concern. If we are able to have more control over those activities, well then I'm a bit more comfortable. So I'm not quite sure, you know, when I read that, the first part is great, but B, C and D just look to me like they're one-size-fits-all. Is that what I'm reading? Or?
Well, I mean, through you, Your Worship, the intent of national standards or national regulations is that they do provide a one-size-fits-all, but sort of a default baseline approach across the country, and then it's up to regions to decide, do we need something different here and why, and to make that case. Yes, there will be some things that we don't have the ability to change, but we do have that ability to look at where forests go, and that's a very important tool.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Joe, and you will let us know the timelines and timeframes as we go, and keep us abreast of any new changes. Like Joe said, we are in a time of uncertainty where the new government are saying we're going to repeal RMA, we're repealing free printers, it's really juggly, and for us also to get our head around once they have decided where we are going or how a council need to pivot to do what the government wants. So for us, it's a big piece of work. Once we get our heads around it and early in the new year, we will then be able to decide how we move forward as a team. That will give us a base to work with our partners, industry, everyone, so they will then know what base we are working off, because we need to know from the mothership what are the rules that are still part of it or not part of it. So councillors, if you have any more questions or you want to sit down with Joe and have more clarity or questions that you forgot about today or clarity about this, please just feel free to shout out directly to Joe and her team. And to Jocelyn, thank you for joining us today virtually, and thank you for the work you guys do on our behalf. This is a noting paper, councillors, so I am going to ask if there is a mover, Councillor Foster, and the seconder is Councillor Ria. Thank you very much. If there are no more questions or queries, I'll put it all in favour. Aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you, Jocelyn. Councillors, I'm running a little bit behind schedule, but I do want to welcome Rachel, who's going to have an informal chat with us. So you all have met Rachel before. She is here to assist us and to help us. Part of the Milu, take a look. Yes, you can come and take a seat here, Rachel. I do apologise for cutting into the time. I know that Rachel just wanted to come and say hello today, let us know where she's at, but also make sure everyone can touch base with her if they want to. Click an email. Rachel, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Kia ora, tēnā koe koro matua.
Sorry. No, thank you.
Tēnā koe koro matua, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Rachel Reese toku ingoa, nā mau haere mai. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Now, I have sat in a different council chamber in this hot seat.
So Rachel used to be the Mayor of Nelson.
I was a koro matua whakatū, 15 years in local government, and before that I've worked as a resource management practitioner. So listening to the kōrero this morning is very, very interesting. I am very conscious you have another meeting coming swiftly at you. So the purpose of being here today, and for those of you who I didn't get to meet, I think you had a tangi when I was last here, and so you had several who were unable to be here, understandably. I wanted just to come and see you today. I've been in region, having really good hui, spending some very good quality time with your team, particularly this week, and more of your team to meet over the next couple of days. I just want to acknowledge first that you're in a recovery, in a civil defence emergency recovery position. But I'd have to reflect on that and say I have lived in that world in Nelson, Tasman, where I felt like I spent most of my mayoral time in the EOC, the Emergency Operations Centre. And it's gruelling for you as elected members, all of you. You are out there living that world every single day, trying to support your community through recovery. And when I think about Tairāwhiti, you have been in response recovery, almost continuously. I want to frame this particular series of events to say, for context, when I look at this and reflect and speak to the emergency management professionals, we can see the last round of cyclones being a more complex recovery from the Kaikoura earthquake. And I just want to say that to you as elected members. So if you are feeling overwhelmed by this, worn down, exhausted, really thinking out where to next, it is very complex, and it is a moving situation. And it's a moving situation, I think, as you know very well, because of the landscape scale change that has happened and is continuing to happen. So when I come here to talk about the response from the Ministerial Inquiry into land use, I want to really acknowledge that, yes, it is about how this region uses its land. And there does need to be a reset. And I think that's, in all of the conversations that I've had, that has been a shared view. But underlying that is, and it's described as a highly erodible landscape. A large part of your Tairāwhiti is, and I would say, a highly eroding landscape. It is in front of you, eroding, and at a scale that I think most of Aotearoa would not understand. It's important to sort of set that context around what is here. The really positive part is that coming into this region is the commitment of all of you and the pride for your region and your determination for Tairāwhiti, your optimism for the future and your real determination to make that happen. It's not going to be an easy road, and my role is here to be here to support the communities, to help with the messaging back to an incoming government about what it is that you need, what resources could be supported, how government can operate better within your region, to be able to communicate back to now a range of ministers, and I want to acknowledge that we now have a different set of arrangements around ministries, and I think that's going to serve this community well. I'm pleased to see a focus on regional development. It is really, really important, and I say that coming from a region. So now is a chance for this region really to play to its strengths, and I'm here to help support that. I'm going to round out now because you are on a really tight time frame. So what I was after today, and we can, because you are short on time, What I'm going to suggest is that what I wanted to do is hear from you as elected members, because you are all members of the communities of this region. And you will have experiences and knowledge, you will have thoughts and ideas that it is important for me to capture as I start to build that interim advice coming through to the ministers. What I propose is that I'm very happy for you to contact me directly. If
We'll
there are
make sure we've
things
got
that,
your
yeah,
email
and
and
we'll get all those through to you, and then you can contact me. I'm happy to hear from you. If there are areas that you think the government needs to strengthen, if there are things that you think are going particularly well or not going well, then let's capture those. It is a big ask. There are some things here that I would observe already that are putting a real pressure on a council, on a unitary council, particularly doing all of the functions in the scale of Gisborne District Council. But I can say from all of the conversations I am having with your people, these are really good people, doing really good work, doing their absolute best under some very, very trying circumstances. So kia kaha to you all, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for the way you have come into our region in a mana enhancing way, coming to catch up with everyone, trying to get the best idea of what works, what can work better, what can work differently. As a council, I will make sure councillors have your contact details if you're happy for me to pass that on. And also from us, again, like I've said the first time we met, if there's anything you need from the Gisborne District Council, you just shout out. Thank you so much. Kia ora. Thanks a lot, Rachel.
Quick one on that. Just how will you treat that individual approach? It won't be a council approach. So if you are getting individual responses, it's not a response from the council.
It won't be a response from the council, and actually that's not really what I need right now. What I need is your insights as elected members connecting strongly with the community and different from a community voice. So I'm not here to reconsult with your community. There's been enough of that, and I absolutely take on board that fatigue. That fatigue is very, very real, and it is important that we don't add to that pressure. So as elected members, bringing forward those insights, I'd really like to capture them.
Thanks a lot, Rachel. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. Okay, councillors, we move on to, this is a big paper, PYP roadmap and significant forecasting assumptions.
Well, it's a big paper you've actually seen.
We have seen the last...
basically, you've probably gone through most of it. You've had it in the
we read that for our workshop, the snapshots in my mental scan.
So you've had the roadmap of what has come through, and so it's just basically putting into a paper of what those things you've been through. You've had the environmental scan, and so this is just a reiteration with it. The only things that are perhaps a little bit new is when we do a three-year plan, long-term plan, we have to make assumptions. And so there are some assumptions as we take into our planning, what they may be, and those are on your attachment 2 of what they are. And some of it is basically the similar things. It might be, what do we assume that we will have for our, to do our funding, the level of funding for our roads, what is it that we are funding in terms of all of our depreciation, main ones being that we don't fund all of our depreciation costs, especially those that relate to the share that we expect to get from Mokokatari in the future. It's basic kind of assumptions that we have to understand as we go through for our planning processes. But that's about the only thing that is a point of difference that you already said. But I'm happy to take any questions that you may have with regards to it.
So to me, we will in the next while, so we've done our prioritisation workshop, and I just want to set the scene and walk through so that we can set the expectation of what's going to happen in the first 6 months of next year, because there will be a lot. in here. New councillors have not been through a 10-year plan process yet. And I do think we need to set the expectation, like just what we've said earlier, those first two papers were around policies, which are chunky, and there's a lot in there, and there are assumptions in there. And it works like an iterative process. You do need to get your building blocks ready first before you get there. You can't get there and then decide, oh, I didn't want that in there. So for councillors, I also want to set the expectation that there's a huge amount of work ahead of us, and after we've had a nice Christmas break to recharge our batteries, but also before that, next week, we are having our 4th prioritisation workshop where we will work on these, the infrastructure, the financial and the capital works. So what I'm asking is there going to be a lot of reading work before?
In terms of those, for the next one, you've got one on the 6th, which is setting the scene. It's actually confirming what is your vision, what is your outline, what is it you want to see. And then we put the context of, again, financial strategy and the infrastructure strategy. You will have that as a sort of the basis that comes through from that. In the beginning, you will have set your priorities in terms of where do you expect to see, what do you want to make sure that we've actually captured in the activities that we are doing. So that's your priorities. We set the scene saying what are the things we also seen in our context. And then that gives them the next time, the week that, what does that mean? And what are your expectations? So by the 14th of December, we kind of need to have a direction from council of what those main things that you would want to see in your long-term plan, what they are, in terms of those outcomes, and kind of what is your fiscal envelope in order to do that. So there's some chunky stuff to get through as we go through for the next 2 weeks.
Councillor Wharehinga.
Just off the back of the Mayor's point, and again, yeah, just I guess for lack of context, the fuller table. So in preparation for those workshops, would we be expecting the same kind of level of amount of reading as like the past 10-year plans, etc., etc.? I mean, it would for the workshops, and also past that, are we also expecting the same amount of community contact days in terms of hearings, etc., etc., around that consultation period early next year? Because again, just to support the point that the Mayor was making, the majority of this table hasn't been through a 10-year plan kind of workshopping and engagement. So I'm just trying to get a level.
So in terms of it, we probably haven't got the same amount of material that you actually had because there was a lot of lead-in time with a lot of other things. We also did some basically back to principles reviews with our revenue and financing policy. This year is more like what is it that we need, what is not quite working, what do we need to change into it. So that was basically a whole year on full review that came through. So some of those things you won't have the same intensity, but there will still be, and the consultation and the program that we actually do, that usually will occur in between March and April, and it goes for a month, and how we do that and how we approach it will be, you'll get an idea of it, but it's usually March, April, and that's depending on the number of community hui's that we have, that is usually pretty intense over that period. You're quite right.
So will we still be having because like, so previous to our usual 10-year planning, I remember getting a document of like almost 5,000 pages, not 5,000 words, 5,000 page document. You know, like as...
Is that all?
Like, will we be... so what I'm hearing is that like it's going to be less than that, but the community engagement will still be up around, because we got all of the unedited comments and all of the, you know, all that kind of stuff. Also in terms of community engagement, we would have 2 solid weeks, like in here, 9 till 4, just listening to the community. Like, are we talking about on that same level of engagement as well?
There's a little bit of work in progress of what we do and how we can do it. Whether there a little bit is, and that's to come, what that may mean. We know that with the Category 3 proposal, we did a different form of engagement, and we did the listening to the community where they could speak at those more. So whether there's a mix that allows you to do both with it, we're just that exploring and the consultation is to come. So showing that worked, it was really, really effective, as opposed to the full hearings where you have multiple kind of things that come through out of it. So it's a little bit of work in progress of how we do it. We're also mindful that it is constrained in terms of what we do, so we're trying to make sure that what we're doing is as effective and as efficient and so that means we're more a little bit agile and a little bit different than previously. But there still will be a lot of stuff coming in terms of policies that we may have to adopt at pace.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Like I'm hearing you in regards. It's going to be some of the old, but we're also going to try and make it a bit.
Yes.
Because the community does expect and actually does like the hearings, you know, to be able to come and be heard by council, you know, etc., etc. So it's nice it's nice to know that we'll be having a re-look at some of that, but still kind of having some of the other stuff in order for those that are used to that to engage it. Thank you.
Councillor Pahuruhuriwai.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thanks, Josh, for Councillor Wharehinga, for that insight into the 10-year planning process. I just wanted, following on from that, I just ask the staff if we can have that calendar well in advance, only because some of us who are working and have babies and all of that type of thing need to plan well ahead to make sure that we can fully commit to what's expected. Also the hearings, if there's an allowance for hearings to be done via Zoom, so that the rural communities like ours, 3.5 hours north of Tūranga, can participate online. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, we can add that into
We need to make it work for our communities. We hear that. Thank you. Any more questions or queries in regards to this? If not, I'm happy to move it. Seconded by Councillor Wharehinga. All in favour? Aye. On free. Carry. I'm just going to carry on, Heather. I think we're going to finish our next paper and then we'll grab lunch before the Wastewater Committee starts at 2. Okay. We go to the paper that's not on the agenda, councillors. So this is the Local Government New Zealand paper, which we have spoken about a little bit before. It's quite high level and generic, if not generic is not the word I want to use, high level principles that they have taken out of the Future for Local Government review. What they have tried this time, because last time when Three Waters came around, there was a lot of criticism of Local Government New Zealand that they did not consult their partner councils on the position that they took. So what they decided after the last AGM, let's give it a go. The Labour government has written or commissioned this Future for Local Government report, which has taken 2 years. We've had several, for those councillors, new ones might not have in the beginning, but we've had several Zooms. They visited us as well, just to get input to see what works, what doesn't work, what needs to change. And principally there were the 5 issues that has come up, or out of the 35 recommendations, it is about build a new system of government that's fit for purpose, rebalance the country's tax stake between central and local government, create stronger, more authentic relationships between local government and iwi, hapu and Māori, 4, align central, regional and local government priorities. And then the last one is strengthen local democracy and leadership. You've all had the opportunity to read through this and make up your mind. So the process going forward is that I will, on the 11th of December, vote on our behalf. If I cark it, Josh will vote. If Josh cark it, Rob will vote. So those are the voting group. So what I am saying is I'm opening the floor for questions. What local government is trying is to get all their membership councils to take a position, either adopt this or say, no, we don't agree. And then when we vote on the 11th, they will then know, yes, we have a mandate to go and talk to the government and say, as a group, this is how local government New Zealand feels. We also need to take into account that the new government might take a look at the Future for Local Government report and decide this is not what we want, this is not what we commissioned, and this is not important to us, or we'll tweak it or change it. So that is something speculative because I don't know what the new government will do with it, but Local Government New Zealand are wanting to be proactive and take charge of a process versus then it being dealt to you. Because I think it's very clear that funding arrangements is a high issue for all councillors because with Three Waters changing and RMA changing, again, some councils will find themselves in positions that are untenable. So I'm going to open the floor if there are any questions or queries, and then we take it from there. Councillor Wharehinga.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm fine with this paper, right? You know, like when I think about the 5 points of LGNZ, I think that they're fine for our region to support these things. I know that there's a lot of discussion at the moment in regards to central government messaging in regards to Māori and Te Tiriti, but I'd like to remind us as elected local government councillors that we are obligated by the legislation, regardless of what messaging comes out of central government. We're obligated by the RMA. We're obligated by many instruments of legislation. So this absolutely aligns in my 4-term brief of being a councillor. This absolutely aligns with the jobs of what we're supposed to be doing as elected councillors. So I think that this is sensible for us to support. So that's my 2 cents, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Wharehinga.
Yeah, no, I read through this and I was the same as Councillor Wharehinga. I thought there's a good direction. Obviously, the relationship between local government and national government is so critical, and it's the funding mechanism as well, because as we know, and most councils are saying there's just not enough funding to do everything that is needed to do for their infrastructure, for their local communities. So there needs to be a reshift in how we look at the whole central government, local government relationship. So when I read through all this, I thought this was really good direction to be heading in, and I really like the more as democratically elected leaders, we need to be more accountable as well, and we need to have some more tools to be able to make us more committed to the role. So and also educating the youth of how local government and governments work, and installing that knowledge in an early stage will get people more into knowing the importance of local government and how we operate and how important it is for communities' well-being and everything. So I thought I was really excited when I read all this, and I'd be very happy for us to be in support of it. So I'd be totally wanting you to vote yes for this. Thank you.
Anyone else wanting to contribute? If not, is there a mover for this? Councillor Wharehinga, seconded by Councillor Foster. So I will vote yes. All in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. So what we're going to do, we're going to break. This is the end. Did I miss anything? We are at the end of the meeting, am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, we don't have public excluded? No. So we're going to break now. This is the official end of our meeting. There's lunch out there.